And so, after thousands of years, British troops successfully copied the tactics of Saul and Jonathan. The afternoon before I left Palestine for England, I wanted to be alone. For 4 years, I had been constantly with men I had learned to admire and trust. I had been through the horrors of a great war, but now the country was at peace and the people were free. We had finished our mission. Peace and freedom were in the Holy Land for the first time for 500 years, and it all seemed worthwhile.
Is there a miracle in the Vivian Gilbert story? Historian Meir Halevi is convinced there is.
Okay, Vivian Gilbert looks in his Bible because this place reminds him of something, and he sees the story of Jonathan against the Philistines and says, this is a very good piece of tactical warfare. I'll try the same tactic and see if it works.
No reasonable and rational soldier or major or officer will come against the Turkish Empire that lands on the plateau right here. This is a miracle.
You think that God throughout history has been especially kind to the Jewish people in performing miracles?
No, he has a redemption. He has a goal to the whole world. And he brings the whole world to this target. And whenever the world does not go to exactly the direction that he wants us to be in, he's just doing a miracle, just, giving us the right direction.
When you say the word miracle, what do you mean by that?
A miracle is that it is out of any regular probability that you could calculate. This is a miracle.
Was there a miracle at Michmash? How could Jonathan, an inexperienced swordsman, manage to kill 30 trained Philistine soldiers by himself? Why would the entire Philistine army mistake Jonathan's attack on the outpost for an army so big they decided their only hope was to run away? Is it a coincidence that Vivian Gilbert read that particular Bible story on the night before his troops were scheduled to make a frontal assault on the Turks, a battle plan that probably would have cost the lives of many of his men? Why did the Turks think Gilbert's small band of men was actually the entire Allenby army of nearly 100,000 troops? Even so, how did Gilbert manage to kill or capture the entire garrison with only a company of soldiers? Good tactics or sheer luck just don't explain it. Maybe a miracle is the only logical explanation. The entire British campaign in Palestine in World War I is filled with such unexplainable stories. Consider this incredible discovery. In Vivian Gilbert's journal, he observed that Britain's liberation of Jerusalem had fulfilled an ancient prophecy. 2,000 years ago, the prophet Daniel received a vision that Jerusalem would be delivered from its enemies in 1,335 years. The prophet Haggai later added that the day of blessing would come on the 24th day of the 9th month of the Hebrew calendar. The date foretold by these two prophets was December the 9th, 1917. The very day the mayor of Jerusalem handed over the keys of the city to the British Army. Historian Yehuda Noblach put it this way:
God makes history, makes the future too.
If God makes history, how can I understand why so many terrible things have befallen Jews over the centuries? How can I explain the destruction of Israel by the Romans, the pogroms of the Russian Tsars, the Nazi Holocaust? Where was God in history at those times? How can I believe in a God that would allow such horrible things to happen to his chosen people? Chosen for what? For me, today raised more questions than answers. And some days my search for miracles in Israel feels more like a search for truth itself. What one man sees as just great luck, another man sees as nothing short of a miracle from God. Who's right? But some stories step outside the realm of good luck. You either have to believe or you don't. There's no middle ground. I'm meeting a former army commander in Jerusalem today with such a story from the Six-Day War in 1967. The Six-Day War, fought and won in just 6 days, has been called by some a true miracle. At the same time, others insist it was a consummate demonstration of planning, preparation, and battlefield courage. Whatever your position on miracles, it was certainly against all odds. For many, the Six-Day War in 1967 ultimately came down to the battle for Jerusalem. It is the most sacred place in Jewish history. The fight for its control was desperate and difficult. Yoram Zamush was a young paratrooper assigned to the capture of the Temple Mount. I met him in front of the western wall of the temple.
Yoram, when you first heard that your unit was going to have the mission of breaking through into the old city of Jerusalem, how did you feel?
Myself, maybe more than others, had a sense of longing for this city. To think we were about to finally fight in Jerusalem to liberate it. Remembering our parents, grandparents back in Auschwitz, this was the climax of their wishes. When we spoke among ourselves, we felt we were touching and even making history.
It was not a very easy thing to get into the old city, was it?
The Jordanians were waiting for us. We killed 80 of them during that first battle the night before we arrived ourselves inside the old city. It was a very difficult battle. We lost a third of our unit. There were more than 86 casualties. Hundreds were wounded.
רגע, חכו רגע. קח צעד קדימה. קדם אחד קדימה.
The city seemed deserted, but there was a danger of snipers everywhere. The way to the Wailing Wall was through the green door, which we found locked. An old Arab man suddenly stepped forward and, speaking in Hebrew, greeted us. He said he wanted peace in the holy city. For several minutes, we were at the wall's courtyard, just a handful of us soldiers. Those first minutes were so quiet, no gunshots. We all prayed, even those of us who weren't great believers. We all wanted to be part of the Jewish people at that point. We were the messengers of the entire Jewish people throughout all generations. We haven't arrived at this point by accident.
It was June 7th, 1967. News of the liberation of Jerusalem spread like wildfire throughout the country. Tank commanders stopped to pray. Soldiers on the front lines cheered. The nation celebrated. Around the world, faithful Jews and Christians alike wept for joy at the news that 200 centuries of prayer had finally been answered. One man who came to see for himself had a very special reason to thank God for this victory. He had been here before, exactly 19 years before, on another night, fighting another battle for this very same city.
Ezra, 1948, you were a soldier in Israel's army, fighting for independence.
Right.
What happened to you?
We were told that we were going to liberate the old city. We felt flying, reaching the skies from excitement. It was a dark night, but through the dark, we could see the flashes of the blows of the bombs, and we could hear the voices of the explosion. And I saw that the bombs are blowing nearer and nearer to where we sat.
קדימה חבר'ה, עוד מעט שעת השין לפריצה. שימו לב, יש להם צלפים. לכן קסדות על הראשים, רצועות מתוחות וחגור מלא. במצב קריאה, תבדקו שוב את הציוד שלכם, אם אחד מכם ילך לאיבוד, הוא עוד יודע לי על כך. ברור? כן, המפקד! בהצלחה. קדימה חבר'ה, לקום לעמדות! כולם בסדר!
I felt a strong hit on my head, push in my head, and the stream of blood flooded from the depth of my head.
מישהו נפצע? שימו לב, לכו לאחור. תבדקו מי פצוע.
כולם בסדר כאן? אתה בסדר? לפחות אני פצוע. מי פצוע?
And all that time, I understood my right eye has been blinded. They took me to the surgery room, and the operation lasted the whole day, from morning to the evening. And they saw they made big holes in my skull to clean it from all kind of broken bones. And later on, I found that it was not only bones. They had to take parts of the broken brain. I suddenly thought maybe that's the end. Maybe I was bordering between life and death. A sudden tremble. And I felt I was facing God. I can't say how. It's above what I can say in words. I felt he was waiting for my prayer. No, I won't wait. Let him wait. He has so many things to do in his word. So what shall I ask for? I wanted to live. So I said, God, my life is in your hands. You decide it. But if you're waiting for me to ask for anything, I would like so much to hear the word that Jerusalem has been liberated.
שמעת את החדשות? בדיוק כשהחיילים שלנו עמדו לשחרר את העיר העתיקה, הכריזו על הפסקת אש.
לא שחררו את העיר העתיקה?
לא.
I can't imagine how hurt I felt. I got out, you know, with the time. I survived miraculously. I managed to get married, to have children, but I live in the other side of the wall.
Just as Solomon asked God not to bless himself, but for wisdom to benefit his people, Ezra's prayer was for Jerusalem. It seemed to go unanswered. But was it?